Welcome to Eye on the Illini. This is Mike Kegley. We're going to be talking about the Eastern Illinois Panthers, and we are going to be talking with Zarya Flippin. She is the sports editor for the Daily Eastern News. So she has had an opportunity to watch practice. She knows some of the players, had a chance to interview the players, got an idea of what is coming to town. And I'm telling you, Illini fans, she's made me a little nervous because this Eastern Illinois team is coming to town confident and they feel they can move the ball on the Illini and they feel like they can outscore the Illini and come out of Champaign with a win. You would expect a team to think that, but they do have some talent coming off of a very good season last year for Eastern Illinois, and they're looking at this as a second season to go ahead and make some hay and build the Eastern Illinois reputation. This should be very good. After that, we will also spend a few minutes talking about what my definition of a make or break season is, or at least a big season, an important season, a season that may be looked at as incredibly important down the line. We will talk about that after Zaria leaves. So we will be right back after these messages. Folks, we are so excited because it's football season and we are so ready to see the Illini in action. Eastern Illinois University is making the trip up from Charleston. Going to see how they do against the Fighting Illini. Of course, people who follow Illini guys realize that Larry Smith, of course, the man who's known as the former CNN anchor, and of course, he's on the WNBA on Ion TV every week. He is an Eastern Illinois Panther. Brad Sturdy, my other co-host on the Illini Guys Sports Spectacular, and the guy who's covered the Illini second longest behind Lauren Tate, is also an Eastern Illinois Panther. And Matt Stevens, our football beat writer, is an Eastern Illinois Panther. So this is kind of like a semi-homecoming game for them. I didn't want to put those guys up as the expert for Eastern Illinois. So we had to get a real expert. So I got Zarya Flippin, who is the sports editor for the Daily Eastern News. Yeah, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
As Illinois fans, I can only give you when I went away to college at Southern Illinois University in 1985. I come back up for the first game of the year when SIU had to play the Illini. And as somebody who grew up in Mahomet, Illinois, I had bet Illinois in 4 touchdowns with all my friends at SIU, figuring all the money I was going to count up. And then it went down to the fourth quarter before the Illini powered their way through. How dangerous is this Eastern Illinois team?
I would say that this Eastern Illinois team, I feel like it's going to shock a lot of people because I think the biggest thing coming into this matchup is that people are looking at it as an FCS school versus an FBS school, and they aren't really taking account of the overall records. And I mean, I get it. FBS is more competitive. They have most likely like stronger players. But Eastern Illinois ended their season 8-3 with one of the biggest turnarounds in FCS history after ending their season 2-9. So I feel like that's probably the biggest takeaway that I feel like most people aren't necessarily seeing. So I feel like it's actually going to be a pretty good competition.
So the first question I had to ask, because looking through the rosters, it jumps out at me that Pierce Hawley at 6'3", 225 pounds, and then you take a look at the Eastern Illinois tradition of quarterbacks, Jimmy Garoppolo, Sean Payton, Tony Romo. He's coming to town last year with 2,700 yards of passing. How good is he when he drops back to throw the ball?
I think the thing about Pierce is that you can tell when he's comfortable. You can tell when he's comfortable with the offense and how everything's working out. And as soon as that part clicks, there's pretty much no stopping him. Um, he has really been he's actually been one of like the best players that I've watched recently just because of how much he has improved. And with that being his first year with the Panthers, I think it's more like how is he going to adjust now with a lot of returners, I feel like it's just going to get stronger.
And what type of quarterback is he? Is there certain types of passes that you think he's more effective at? What kind of arm strength is Illinois looking at trying to defend? How challenging is that going to be?
I know that he's been working on his throwing abilities. I know that we have talked that he said that that is something that he wanted to improve on over the summer. And looking at some of their fall camp and even some of their scrimmages, he has definitely improved his arm strength. He can make passes like over 40 yards. And I think that when he finds an open man and he knows when to throw it, I think it'll always be completed.
When they're looking at this offense, how is the rushing game with Eastern Illinois? Are they going to be trying to move the ball on the ground, or is it going to be more air, or how are they most comfortable in that offense?
So we have a running back, MJ Flowers, and he was an All American last year. And I feel like he's definitely going to be coming back with the run game. And then even his backup, Jay Pearson, he's also been improving a lot throughout the summer. And those two are very, very similar. So I feel like our coach can switch them out every now and then, and they would produce very similar outcomes. And I think the run game on that part is pretty good. But I know the wide receiver room has been a little iffy. We have two returners coming back in Eli Mirza and Darius Smith, which were two of Holly's top targets last season. But we also had two of his top targets in Justin Thomas and Justin Bowick leave. So it's trying to figure out who the third and fourth would be in there. So we've had a couple of transfers come in, and one that has stuck out to me personally is CJ Nelson, a Houston transfer. And he has definitely been improving a lot throughout practices and everything. And I watched a little bit of what he did at Houston, and he didn't play a whole lot, so there wasn't a whole lot to like um study on him. So when I did actually get to look at him in practice, it's like, man, this guy could be like in that rotation with Mirza and Smith. So I feel like with that, it's also just unknown just because we haven't really seen a full game from him.
Is this offense one that uses the two tight ends very often? What are we looking at there in terms of how they tend to line up and how they attack defenses?
We normally use one tight end, in Anthony Menavez. So he is also a returner that had significant numbers last season. So it could go, I feel like it could go pretty well for Eastern's advantage with Manny and how him and Pierce Holly are just so connected in that way. But I think we also just have a very good depth in our tight end room in transfers that have come to Eastern. We also haven't seen them play a whole lot just because of fall camp and everything. But I definitely feel like if something were to happen where they got to rotate Menavez out, I feel like any of those tight ends could step up.
When you look at Mirza last year, 54 receptions, 12.6 yards per catch, three touchdowns. Smith at 27 receptions and 17 yards, almost 18 yards a catch. How do you think this offensive line is going to match up? That tends to be the place that you look at the difference between the levels of college, and that's where you see some of the difference. But Illinois on the interior defensive line no longer has Johnny Newton, and he was the ace in the hole for 3 years for that defense. Now they're going to have to find someone else to be the Superman. How do you think Eastern's offensive line will play against the Fighting Illini?
I think that's actually going to be one of the biggest challenges for our offensive line, just because I'm pretty sure U of I's defensive line is a lot bigger than our offensive line. But I feel like we have a returner, Sebastian Perez, and I'm pretty sure he's the left end. But he's a returner for the Panthers, which I know offensive line aren't really talked about a lot in the collegiate level, but I feel like offensive line are the product of or are a part of the product of a really great offense. So I feel like with him coming back and then our center, Drew Wilder, has been stepping up a lot and he's also returning. And along with Nick DeSanto, who's a sophomore, I feel like this offensive line is going to, I feel like they're going to do well. And I think just because they know what they are up against, I don't think they're taking this game softly or anything like it's another game. They are stepping up to the plate at every single practice.
And they do have size. You look up and down this offensive line, you're looking at guys between 200 and 295 pounds, all the way up to Rashid Anderson at a whopping 355. So there are not a lot of lightweights on this offensive line. How important was the offensive line play to that turnaround that you talked about last year in terms of the success of the team and as they went from a 2-win team to an 8-win team?
Oh, it was very important. I definitely think the strength of our offensive line has won us a lot of our games last season. If you like look back at certain plays, there are certain plays where the offensive line does such a good job at holding everyone back that Holly has enough time, even more than enough time, to figure out what he's going to do and execute perfectly.
Well, that's not what Illinois fans want to hear at all. So what we're trying to give people an idea, if this offensive line comes out and let's say in the first quarter, they can go toe to toe with the Illini defensive line, what do you think that rest of the game is going to look like in terms of what Eastern's trying to do and what Pierce Holly's trying to do back there in the backfield?
I think I think if the offensive line stops the defensive line as they do with our other opponents in the FCS, I think this is going to be a very close game.
That is exactly the nerve-wracking alternatives that Illinois fans don't really want to think about too much. As we go to the other side of the ball, defensive line wise, well, tell us a little bit defensively about the personality of this team. Are they a blitzing team? Are they a zone team, a man-to-man team? What have they been famous for in terms of how they go after the opposing offense?
Our defense, just in general, I would describe them as if I could describe the defense in one word, it would be explosive. I feel like our defense, with especially our defensive line, we have a defensive end, Joel Barros, coming back, and he is definitely one of the most explosive players on that defensive line. And as soon as he sees an opening, he is going after whoever he needs to stop the ball.
Is he the guy that Illinois is going to have to make sure they know where he's at all points of the game?
Oh yeah, he ended the season with three forced fumbles, so I think that's definitely going to be something that U of I should worry about if he gets too close to the ball when they if they can stop him.
Okay. And how are the linebackers for Eastern?
So have we have a lot of returners in the linebacker room, and um, specifically Elijah Tolbert. He um, he recorded 87 total tackles last season, and he's definitely someone that is also a very explosive player. And I think the strength between him and one of our other starting linebackers and Anthony Shockey is that they know how to read an offense so well. They can like anticipate a pass that's coming in for an interception.
Yeah, and both are seniors. When you go into the defensive backfield, Illinois has a fairly underrated, but I think a pretty good wide receiver room that features some size. How does the defensive backfield of Eastern shape up in terms of dealing with what Illinois can throw at them from the wide receiver position?
With our defensive backs, we've actually had a couple of changes within the team just because we lost some of our heavy hitters due to either graduating or transferring. So that is probably one of the unknowns or questionable parts of EIU. But I would say that Mark Aiken, he is definitely someone that I know his size wouldn't say that he is very powerful and explosive, but it's just a number.
When you look at their special teams, how have they been in terms of you're looking at the place kicking? Obviously, in today's game, there's a lot of close matchups. Illinois has a very good kicker. How is the kicking game for Eastern?
I would say our kicking game, that is another question because our starting kicker graduated last year. So there is some question on who the starting kicker would be. So I feel like it could go either way. I feel like any of the guys could step up.
Okay. And when it comes to punting, how does that look?
I would say our punting's pretty good. Our punter, Jacob Horvath, he's been working very hard throughout the summer. And I feel like that he has definitely improved in how far he kicks and how precise it is. If it's because I don't see him shifting more to a certain side, it's more in the center now.
Okay. And then are there any returning return men that are dangerous when it comes to punt return or kickoff return for the Panthers?
Definitely Mark Aiken again.
His name's coming
He
up,
is
yes.
he is very quick on his feet, and it would definitely be very hard to stop him if he gets all that momentum.
When we look at this team, you get a chance to watch practice, you get a chance to talk to some of the players. How are they feeling about going into a game against Illinois that maybe people aren't taking them too serious? What are their thoughts on that?
Oh, they feel excited. They are ready. And I remember I was talking to a few of them, and this was after the ESPN analytics came out saying that there was a 2.2% chance that they would win. And I found out for some of the players that they took a picture of it and put it all around the facility just to remind them this is the number that people are thinking. Like, not a lot of people think that we're going to win this game. Like, we got to prove them wrong. So I feel like they're definitely very excited, very ready, and they are ready to give U of I a good competition.
And what is the confidence level? There's one thing to be fired up. Do they feel like they can walk in there and come out with the W? Do they think, hey, look, we just want to keep it close and see what happens? What are you hearing when they're talking about the actual game?
I'm hearing that they really think that they can go out and take this win and upset the Fighting Illini. I think that there is honestly no fear in any of them.
Okay. If they described what the winning game would look like, what would if they told you this is what we need to do to win, this is what that game will look like when it unfolds in front of us?
They have not told me that, like how they think or what they think needs to happen, but they have they've implied that everyone just needs to be on their assignments and do what they need to do in order to win the game.
When we're looking at on offense, do the Illini do they expect Pierce Holly to take some shots against them deep? Are they going to try to go for the home run, or is this going to be a ball control type of offense? Do you have any vision in how they're going to try to attack the Illini?
Um, I definitely think that um I definitely think you're going to see Holly's throwing ability a lot throughout this game, just because of the agility and the quickness that the wide receivers have. Now, if all of them are covered up, Holly is not shy of using his feet to run the ball for a first down. So I feel like if his targets aren't open, he will do what he needs to do to convert into a first down.
And then on defense, is this team going to blitz and try to get into Luke Altmaier's face? Are they going to drop back and make him be precise with his throwing? How do you think that looks from that standpoint?
I could see them doing a mixture of both, just because I think they're gonna come out. I think they're gonna come out with everything, and then as the game goes on, they're gonna see what they need to adjust and see what they need to do in order to keep the same momentum.
Is there any concern on the size of the U of I backfield with three tailbacks at 240 pounds and bigger, and then you've still got a couple speed guys in there as well? Obviously, Caden Fagan, he's tipping it north of 250, and Jordan Anderson's 240, and you got Josh McCray at 235 to 240. Is there any thought that the defensive line and the defense overall is going to be challenged by just the Illinois offensive line and then those battering ram style of running backs?
I think it will be a challenge, but I also think that if U of I comes into this game thinking that this is going to be an easy win because it's an FCS school, they will soon realize that that's not what it's going to be.
This sounds like it's one of those games that Illinois had better take care of business from the start of the game, or the longer it goes on, the more confidence the Panthers will have.
Yes, I would say that if if U of I comes into this game not taking it super seriously, the Panthers will pick up on every single mistake and every single advantage that they can get.
At Illini Guys, we like to talk to the other media members and get a prediction as to what you think, who's going to win it, and what you think the score will be when the final gun sounds at the end of the fourth quarter.
I think the Panthers will pull off an upset. I think they're going to come in and pull off the upset against U of I. The final score, I'll say 24-17.
Okay. I think Illinois is going to handle this Eastern Illinois team, but I do think in today's football, the difference that there used to be between the different classes is markedly closer than it was in the past. And I also think that college kids with emotion, you can get a snowball that could hit either team, and that could be problematic for either team. The big momentum, the big rush, and you can get a couple touchdowns quickly. We really appreciate you coming on. Was there anything that I didn't ask you that you were ready to answer, or are there any other comments that you wanted to make?
No, I don't think I can think of any.
For people who want to get the Eastern Illinois flavor of the game, can you tell people where they can find your stuff and get a chance to read what your thoughts are on it?
Okay. You can follow the Daily Easton News on every social media with the username of the Daily Easton News.
Okay, perfect. So, folks, you go to Daily Eastern News, you can follow there and get a good idea of what is going on with the Eastern Illinois Panthers. I think no matter what happens with this game this weekend, I think Eastern is going to be a team that it has to be dealt with. And I think they are probably targeting between 8 and 10 or 11 wins this year. That a fair assessment?
Yeah, I would say so.
Thank you so much, Zarya Flippin, for coming on today and talking to us again. We really appreciate getting the view from the Eastern Illinois side of the field, and we look forward to seeing you on Thursday night.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
And before we wrap up the show tonight, we had one subject that I thought was really interesting on the Illini guys message boards. And people are talking about the importance of this season. And one of the things that was out there is, is this a make or break year for Brett Bielema? I don't think there's any way that Brett Bielema is not the coach next year for the 2025 Fighting Illini. And I think he'll probably be the coach for the 2026 Fighting Illini. So individuals who wanted to talk about how this year is a make or break year as if there was going to be some sort of termination, I think that's probably crazy, because the bottom line is Brett Bielema has done better than any of the head coaches. You got to go all the way back to Tepper to have a coach who's done as well as Brett Bielema has. The other thing I think that is really important is you look at this season is that we're starting to see some NIL funds go to Brett Bielema. And when you see that, then all of a sudden you're getting players like Terrence Brooks coming into town, filling a hole. You're getting Franklin at wide receiver, filling a massive hole, JC Davis at tackle. So you're starting to get the type of NIL funds that can help him bring in people to make a stopgap, because you can't recruit every position perfectly. There's very few schools that are Georgia or Ohio State that they just get a top 5, top 10 player at every position, every recruiting class. So when people say that this is a big year, I do think it's a very big year, but I'm going to predict something that's retrospective, which is hard to do. That's why I'm here. I do weird things like that. But I think 10, 15 years down the line, when you look backwards at the Brett Bielema era at the University of Illinois, I think the 2024 season could be the season that people say, well, you know what? They did well that year. The Big Ten expanded to 18 teams. The Big Ten no longer had a Big Ten West to, quote, hide in. And the team did well. So let's say if Illinois goes to a bowl 6-6 or anything better than that, I think people will look back at 2024 and they'll say that was the year I knew for sure that the Bielema era was going to be a success. If this season goes sideways, and look, college football, it could go really well, it could go really bad. That's college football is a high momentum type of sport. You're playing with 18 to 23-year-olds. Take a good look at what happened to Florida State, which nobody thought was going to happen. It can go in a lot of directions. But if the year were to slide and go in a bad direction, then I think 10 years down the line, people might look and say the 2024 season was the season we knew that it wasn't going to work out. So when I say it's a big season, I think more from a retrospective, when you look back, it'll be that type of season. I think this team has a lot of things that are really, really good. The offensive line, do they have 10 guys? Maybe not, but do they have depth like they haven't had? Yes. They've got a strong offensive line. They've got big wide receivers. Brett Bielema loves big wide receivers. They've got some tight ends with some size who can run block. Would love to have Cole Rusk. He is a fantastic player, and we'll get a chance hopefully to see him next year. But the tight end position may be the one that's the scariest. The running back room is huge. We talked about that with Zaria, but of course you have Caden Fagan, you have Jordan Anderson, you got Josh McCray. Those guys are 235 and up, and they can all move. And you still have some speed as well in the backfield with smaller tailbacks. So the running back room looks good. So that Illinois offense with Luke Altmaier improving should be better. Altmaier had a lot of throws under pressure last year. He actually had 39% of throws under pressure. As bad as that Colorado offensive line was that tried to protect Shedeur Sanders, they forced him to throw under duress 38% of the time. So last year was a tough season when it came to pass protection. I think if the offensive line is improved, Luke Altmaier gets some more time. You've also got a running back room that is probably not going to have every single person get injured. I think there's some real reasons to be optimistic for Illinois' offense. And in terms of this being a key year, if Illinois pivots and has an offense that is able to help out significantly, that could be a big deal. Illinois' defense has a lot of talent, there's no doubt, but it's thin on the interior defensive line. An injury or two there could get really ugly really quick. In the Big Ten, that means you have freshmen playing. Sometimes that works out. Most of the time, it doesn't. So we're hoping for no injuries there. Seth Coleman and Gabe Yakas are going to have to improve. They're going to have to be a force every down, and they're going to have to attract blockers to make things easier on the interior defensive line. And you double teams for them would be fantastic. It would really help the rest of that defense. The defensive backfield is very athletic, but they also have a couple places where they don't have a lot of experience. And we know that Aaron Henry likes to play man-to-man defense, which means you're going to have to get after the quarterback because nobody can guard wide receivers for 7 seconds. So the defense should be improving, but without the greatness that was Johnny Newton, and Keith Randolph played most of last year injured. But without those two guys, that's a big void to have. There's opportunities for other guys to step up. But when we talk about this is a big year for Illini football, I don't think there's going to be any turnover at the head coaching position. I think he's a pretty good coach. I think he learned a lot of things in the NFL. And I think now with additional NIL money coupled with the discipline with which he coaches the team, I think this year Illinois got a good shot at going to a bowl. I picked them at 6-6 this year. That puts them in a bowl, and that's where they need to be. No matter what we say, Brett Bielema's going to be here. Let's just hope that team can get over the mountain, get to a bowl, which allows you to recruit better, and it allows for people to decide, hey, I'm going to donate more from an NIL perspective. And that's what we're talking about on the boards at IlliniGuys.com. If you're interested in subscribing at IlliniGuys.com, $99 a year, you get all the stories. You don't have to worry about getting them cut off because it's subscriber only. You also have the opportunity to be on the message boards where you can argue with Matt, with Brad, with Ked, or myself, or Larry. It's a lot of fun. So we'd love to have more subscribers. We'd love to create that community of Illini fans who are enjoying the Illini football, basketball, and other sports as the seasons go on. Until next time, go Illini.